guys, Balls96, but the O is a 0, and with the January transfer window finally up, I would usually be looking at the best transfers from every Premier League team, but considering this was the most boring transfer window ever, I have decided to change it up, and I am instead looking at one transfer for each Premier League team that didn't happen, but it should have. So if you want to find out who I think your team should have signed, make sure to stick around and see. Arsenal, Ivan Toney. I'm starting this list with a signing who I said Arsenal should be making at the start of the window, and now that the window is closed, I'm going to double down and say that they made a mistake in not getting him in. Yes, I know that FFP probably stopped Arsenal from making any major signings, as it did with nearly every other club in the league, but for the purpose of this list, we have to forget about that a bit and look at who would have been the ideal transfer for each team right now, and Ivan Toney would have been exactly that for Arsenal. Having spent a very long time on the sidelines, his ban was up on January 17th, and with 2 goals in his first 2 games back, Brentford are yet to play Manchester City at the time of recording. He looks like he is just starting where he left off. Arsenal are a great team, and they obviously have goals in them. Just look at the win against Liverpool over the weekend for proof of that. But they are lacking a finisher, and even in that major win for them, that was evident, as they could have scored 5 or 6 with some of those other chances. They will be signing a striker in the summer, I'm certain of that, but they really could have done with that now to give themselves the best chance possible of winning the league. Aston Villa, Armando Broja. I did think that Aston Villa needed to sign some right-back competition, and although they didn't go for my suggestion of a loan with a view to a permanent transfer for Nahuel Molina, they did get in a young 18-year-old in the name of Kosta Nedeljkovic, who has gone straight back out on loan, but could cover for Matty Cash when he comes back in, so I've decided to look at a different position here. Armando Broja, who did get a loan transfer away to Fulham at the end of the window, had been linked with Aston Villa prior to that, and I think that would have been a superb move for them. They have a great team, and there aren't a lot of positions which need active reinforcement, but their striking options are pretty thin. Ollie Watkins is one of the best strikers in the league, but behind him, there's only Jean Duran as a natural striker, and although he has potential, he is still really young. It would be a huge drop off from Watkins up top if Villa's main striker was to suffer an injury. Armando Broja isn't much older than Duran, but he definitely has more experience and has a better record in front of goal within the Premier League right now, and until Duran progresses further, they could have done with that. It was in fact rumoured that there could actually be a swap deal on the cards between Broja and Duran. It didn't materialise, but it does raise an intriguing question. Considering where their respective ability levels are right now and each of their potential ceilings, would you rather have Broja or Duran in your team? Let me know in the comments. Bournemouth, Patson Daka, the third striker in this list on the trot. I promise I will be looking at other positions, but for this one, Bournemouth really do need a second option to Dominic Solanke. They did sign Enes Unal on loan, who, according to my FIFA career with Sunderland on FIFA 19, he could be a real good signing for them. However, with it only being a loan signing and Unal having never played in the Premier League before, whilst only playing 197 minutes of football across all competitions so far this season, I think it was the wrong move. I'm not saying that Patson Daka was an outrageous success in the Premier League, but he has at least experienced it, and he did cause a handful for teams whilst playing in it. With 6 goals and 3 assists from 9 games so far in the Championship this season, he is getting plenty of goal contributions in the lesser than expected game time that he has been getting. Daka would have been available on a similar sort of loan deal, and I think particularly if you are taking a short-term deal, he would have been the logical backup or partner to Dominic Solanke rather than Enes Unal. Brentford, Asana João. Still on the strikers it seems, but hey ho, let's persevere, shall we? I did suggest a loan transfer for Moukoko at the start of the window, but now that we are past the transfer window and know for certain that Toney will remain there until the summer, at least I've decided, with the beauty of hindsight, to look elsewhere at another young striker who could have been more likely to join on a permanent transfer. I think that would be an ideal move to make, a young striker on a long-term contract who could have grown under Ivan Toney for the remainder of the season and step up when Toney leaves. João is only 18 years of age and has been playing very regularly for Real Betis this season. He has managed 4 goals in all competitions so far, which isn't mind-blowing numbers, but for your first few months in senior football at such a young age in the second strongest league in the world, that's really not bad at all. He has a really quite similar physical presence as Ivan Toney, and if he was given the chance to grow as second choice to Toney for the remainder of this season, I really do think he would have been set up in good stead to take the next step up over the coming seasons and become a major striker for Brentford. This move could, and I'd say should, happen in the summer, but Brentford have definitely missed a trick in not getting him in now. Brighton, Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, with the ageing legs of James Milner, Pascal Gross and Adam Lallana on top of the departure of Dahoud on loan, Brighton could definitely do with another body in the middle and one who will be in that squad for a number of seasons yet to come. Dewsbury-Hall has been one of Leicester's best players in the first half of the season with 10 goals and 10 assists in 29 league games so far. A fantastic output from a central midfielder in England's second tier, a player with plenty of experience in the Premier League, homegrown and still only at 25 years of age. He ticks every box that Brighton would want in a new midfielder, and despite the rumoured inquiries, they never pulled the trigger on this signing. And that was a mistake. Brighton do have a few young talented midfielders on their books who are great, but as I've mentioned, the senior players are all comfortably in their 30s and they don't really have anything in between. A player with both experience and youth on their side is needed in the middle of the park there, and I would have liked to see this one happen. Burnley, Ryan Kent. I had suggested Burnley needed a winger in Benjamin Roheiser, and I'm sticking with that position, but seeing the name that became touted as the window went on, I'm picking a different player here. Ryan Kent was rumoured with a whole host of other clubs in the last stage of the window, with Burnley coming the closest, having reportedly made a loan offer for him. The player apparently rejected this as he wanted to leave Fenerbahce on a permanent deal, so why didn't Burnley just go for that? I believe a £3.5 million deal was being touted to Steven Gerrard's Al Ettifaq, so surely Burnley could have matched that and pulled in a player who will be a straight up starter for them. Pace, skill and an eye for goal, Ryan Kent is the exact type of player Burnley need within their team. Things haven't worked out for him at Fenerbahce and apparently he has been a bit of trouble, but for that small amount of money and his level of talent, that is surely a risk Burnley should be taking if they want to try and stay in this league. Shouldn't it? Chelsea, Karim Benzema. Looking at the transfer rumour mill for Chelsea is like playing Guess Who. Out of all these different faces, who is going to be the one that they sign? In the end, none of them seem to come to fruition, but a striker signing definitely should have. Santiago Jimenez would have been a spot-on transfer, but he would have cost a lot of money. And although I did say at the start of this list that we would be ignoring FFP for the most part, with this serious possibility that Chelsea have reached FFP already, I feel it best to toe the line a bit with this one. So why not look at the rumoured and very realistic suggestion of Karim Benzema? It is no secret that he wants out of Saudi, and based on Henderson's transfer out, I don't think the Saudi teams are going to hold any players to ransom over their contract, so why didn't Chelsea go for what would likely be a free signing of Benzema in January? They are desperate for a goal scorer up top whilst the likes of Nicholas Jackson grow. A short-term deal for one of the greatest goal scorers of the current generation seems like a no-brainer, not to mention it would have been bloody exciting to finally have Benzema in the Premier League. Crystal Palace, Hugo Ekitike. I said Crystal Palace should bring him in. Sky Sports then went on to say he should come in. So why didn't Palace make the move? It's not as if they didn't have the money to cover wages, because they went and splashed 20 million on Wharton. It's not as if PSG weren't open to a loan move because they've let him go to Frankfurt. It's not as if Crystal Palace suddenly don't need a striker. So why didn't they make the move? This feels like a really big missed opportunity for Palace on the pitch, as they need more players who can score goals, and it feels like a really big missed opportunity for Palace off the pitch, as I think bringing in a striker for PSG would have alleviated a little bit of pressure on the Palace board with the frequent fan protests over their ownership recently. Ekitike is a good young striker who will score goals for whichever team he plays for. It's a shame for Palace fans that team isn't them. Everton side Benrahma. Similar to the Chelsea entry and the very real FFP breaches Everton has suffered and could yet suffer further, I'm going to say more in line with a cheap deal that they could have done. Said Benrahma has gone on to a loan move at French giants Lyon, where perhaps Benrahma would prefer to be, but if Everton stepped up their interest, they would have had a solid chance of getting in one of the more technically gifted players outside of the top 6 teams. I feel like Benrahma would have been so good in this Everton team. He would have been been the star man for the team, which is when he really flourishes, and I could have seen him creating a hell of a lot of chances, something they need to be doing if they are going to avoid the drop. A loan move should have kept them from breaching FFP further, and a loan move for such a talented player would have given them a better chance of remaining a Premier League club. Fulham, Frank Onyeka. Fulham have survived another transfer window without losing João Paulinho. Absolute success. However, I don't think that they will last for long. Surely Bayern or another team are going to come back in for him in the summer, and Paulinho will leave to pastures new. With that in mind, a central defensive mid is a must. And although he hasn't gone just yet, getting one in now to play second fiddle to Paulinho, learn his game a bit, and eventually fill his spot, having already completed his bedding in period, having been at the club for a number of months already, would have been great business. I'm not pretending Onyeka is as good as Paulinho. Of course he isn't, but nevertheless he is a good player and a player who knows the Premier League. They could have gone far wrong than getting him in. He is a bit of a different type of central defensive mid, but the most important thing he shares is that he is a real breaker up of the play, which is Paulinho's most important attribute to this squad. If they could have got someone in now so that they are set up and ready to take over from Paulinho straight away, it would have set them up in good stead for next season. Liverpool, Andre, another player who I suggested should have been signed in January. This time it is for Liverpool with Andre. The Merseyside club did conduct a massive overhaul of their midfield in the summer, and perhaps there are one or two other priority positions, but seeming how the midfield has been having to constantly rotate as a result of injuries and squad absences in recent months, getting in another player to cover in would have been a big boost to the Liverpool squad. Wataru Endo is Liverpool's main natural centre defence mid at the moment, and I personally really like him, but even I can admit that he isn't going to be the long-term solution, whereas Andre could be. Young and clearly with bags of talent based on the calibre of his suitors, this is a move that should have happened. Luton, Ben Sheaf. Luton Town needed to make reinforcements to their defence, and that they did with 2 defenders signed in the winter window. That's good business, but bringing in a central defensive mid on top of that could have been even better. Ben Sheaf is one of the better players at Coventry City, and a move to the Premier League looks like the next step in his career. Luton were linked with him, and I think they should have gone all out. A good player at a good age in that deep lying midfield position would have helped shore up that defensive line some more. Someone to offer more protection. Not only that, but he actually has a tendency to pop up further up the pitch to support the attack and grab the odd important goal, something which Luton would have loved within their squad. This move could have been the major difference in whether they stay up or not, but now we'll just have to see whether the current squad and the couple of new defenders can do enough of a job to achieve that without the signing of Ben Sheaf. And talking of major differences, do you know what would make a major difference for me? If you hit the subscribe button, go on, do it now, treat yourself. Manchester City, Alphonso Davies. There aren't many positions that City need to improve in, so originally I did suggest that they invest in some more youth, and they did exactly that. So I was right in that regard, but it doesn't make for good content for this entry, so let's look at a fun one in Alphonso Davies. Left back is probably City's weakest position on the pitch, constantly playing centre backs there. I'm not sure how long Guardiola will opt to do that. They should bring in a natural left back in the summer, and they could have done it right now with one of the best on the planet. Bayern would be extremely reluctant to lose Davies, but I feel like he could be tempted to leave if City came in, and you can only imagine how good of a player he would become under Pep Guardiola. What do you think? Should City invest in a natural left back or continue with using centre backs out there? Manchester United, Serhou Guirassy. As it was at the start of the window, United still need a striker, and as it was at the start of the window, I think that striker should be Serhou Guirassy. Despite being a largely unknown player prior to this season, he has absolutely blown up in the Bundesliga, scoring an outrageous amount of goals and propelling Stuttgart up the league. Apparently the lad has a very modest release clause in his contract, and Manchester United should have triggered it. Their current options up top are not doing the business at all. This could have been a largely risk-free transfer if the rumours about his release clause are correct, and even if he just scored a handful of goals before the season was out, it would have been more than what their current options have been producing, and it would have alleviated some of the massive pressure that is on young Rasmus Højlund's shoulders. Newcastle United, Calvin Phillips. It is good to know that I am a hell of a lot less fickle than most pundits and fans, as so many of the players that I thought should have signed at the start of the window I still think should have signed now that we are at the end of the window. It was very well publicised that FFP was tying Newcastle's hands behind their backs during this window, which halted them from making any signings, and it seemed to help pave the way for a loan move to West Ham for Calvin Phillips. Instead, good move for him, but for Newcastle, could they not have at least pulled off a loan? I feel like City wouldn't have been too bothered about Newcastle covering much of his wages, so could this not have been a move that they could have pulled off? Newcastle's injuries and absences have been a lot this season, and their midfield has been particularly impacted. Phillips is a very good international player who could have come in and helped steady what has been a shock season for the Magpies. Nottingham Forest, Trevor Chalobah. I did think Nottingham Forest needed to sign a centre-back, but with the FFP breaches hanging over their heads, loan moves and free transfers were the only real possibilities for them this winter, so why not a loan for Trevor Chalobah at Chelsea? He has been struggling with an injury and fitness problems this season, but he should be just about ready to come back now, and Chelsea almost certainly won't be looking to use him. For him, Chelsea and Nottingham Forest, it is a shame that a deal couldn't be agreed here. They could have really done with an extra head back there. Chelsea would have had their wages reduced and Chalobah would have got game time. This would have been a good move all around, and it could have helped to shore up what has been a rather leaky defence this season. Sheffield United, Sekou Mara. Sheffield United are looking like a lost cause, I'm afraid to say, and it would take an absolute miracle for them to pull it around and achieve survival this season. So looking at transfers that could create that miracle from a realistic point of view was rather impossible. Either way, some extra inclusions into the squad would have helped, and the most important position to boost would have been the striking positions. I had suggested Kiefer Moore originally, and I think he would have been good, but just to shake it up a bit, I'm going to talk about who was my second thought at the time. Sekou Mara, much younger than Moore and a rather different type of attacker. He can also play wider, which might have been a good option for this United team. Mara isn't the most prolific attacker at this moment in time, unfortunately, but he can cause some troubles for the opposition defenders, and I reckon he could have grabbed the odd important goal in these last few months of the season. Spurs, Conor Gallagher. A centre-back signing was a necessity signing this winter, and they did just that. So moving our attentions to another position that they could have reinforced, and a player who was heavily linked in Conor Gallagher. In actuality, it's mad that Gallagher has been rumoured with a move away, considering he has been arguably Chelsea's best player, and he has even captained them on occasion. But the truth of the matter is that Chelsea need to balance their books, and it seems they were willing to sacrifice Gallagher to do that. A move to Spurs would have been brilliant for Conor Gallagher and for Spurs. They would have been getting a very talented young homegrown player who can fill a number of positions in the middle of the park. Spurs have traditionally been the dumping ground for French players from their London rivals, but this was their chance to turn the tables and to take one of these star players off of their rivals' hands. The bragging rights for Spurs fans would have been glorious. He would have commanded quite a fee, but he would have definitely been worth it for that alone. West Ham United, Jack Clarke. Jack Clarke was linked with a whole host of clubs during the window, eventually not signing with anyone and sticking with Sunderland until the end of the season, but West Ham was one of those linked clubs who should have 100% made the move. Arguably the most talked about player in the Championship this season. He's been absolutely superb for Sunderland. Yet another young, homegrown talent who can play in a couple positions. If he continues his current form, he will most definitely get picked up by a Premier League team in the summer. This was West Ham's chance to jump the boat on other teams and get in ahead before a bidding war occurs. Wolves, Chris Bedia. Wolves really do need to increase their options in the attacking positions behind Matheus Cunha and Hwang Hee-chan, who both have 11 goals in all competitions respectively. The next top goal scorer is Mario Lemina with 4 goals. If Cunha or Hwang Hee-chan get injured for a decent length of time from now to the end of the season, where are their goals going to come from? Another striking reinforcement would have been a brilliant bit of business, and that could have been Chris Bedia. Having started the season at Servette in Switzerland, you would be forgiven for rubbishing this suggestion, but hang on and listen. In 17 games in the Swiss League in the first half of the season, he had scored 10 goals and assisted 3. In addition to this, he scored 2 in the Swiss Cup and had 4 goals across Champions League qualifiers and the Europa League. That is a superb return for a striker who just made the move to the Bundesliga for a measly 2 million. 2 million. Wolves have missed out on an absolute bargain signing here. Let's hope it doesn't come back to bite them. And there we are, guys. If you liked what you watched, please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and check me out across all of my other socials. I am on X, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube, where you're watching this video. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Bolt Size 6, but the O is 0. You've been wonderful, and I'll see you on the next one.